mai haere mai to the Whāki podcast, which invites people like you and everybody else from all walks of life to converse about various access to equity within the context of Aotearoa. We invite people like you and our very, very intelligent, amazing superpower woman today to share lived experiences in an effort to identify common threads for support systems, social networks, and knowledge that uplifts the collective human experience. Kelsey, what's our season 2 question?
In season 2, we are looking at what does equity and knowledge look like for various communities coexisting within one society. And as tauiwi in Aotearoa, we recognise the mana whenua and kaitiaki of the lands. Malusel and I have experienced most of our growth in the Waikato and want to honour Ngāti Haua, Ngāti Mahana and Ngāti Wairere. We are grateful for the connections our whakapapa weaves through for us to be able to connect and grow with community through the whākiu kaupapa. Malusel and I would also like to honour our queer ancestors who fought for our rights and visibility as equitable citizens of the world. Kia ora, my name is Kelsey and I use they, them pronouns.
Nisa Bulawhinaka, and whakalofalahi atu, malawelele noaia, ko maluseo toko ingoa, and people use he, him pronouns for me, which I really love. And without further ado, we actually gift the time over to our mana wahine right now, because we don't like introducing our guests. We like for them to fashion themselves to us. So please tell us who you are, and then finish with your pronouns as well as the sentence I am. So whatever you say after I am is what you say. It's over to you.
Kia ora koutou katoa, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Madiha Ali, and I have been living in New Zealand for 3 years now. It's just been 3 years this last month. Apart from that, I do a lot, but I feel like I don't really want to introduce myself by the titles that, normally we introduce ourselves with, because I feel like all of us human beings are so much more than just those titles. And so my introduction would be that I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, and I'm just another human being who has a lot of aroha for this world. And I use she, her pronouns, and I am love.
Oh my god, so good already.
Already.
Amazing. I'm like, we could just end on that and that's just the whole thing.
And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, but.
Thank you, but.
So good, Madiha. Amazing. So, obviously this season we are exploring knowledge, and we're curious, when the word knowledge comes up, what does that bring up for you? How would you describe knowledge, and what is knowledge to you?
I think I would say knowledge for me would mean lived experiences and experiences in general, because I think that knowledge isn't something that you learn in books, or you don't become knowledgeable by having a degree or reaching a certain level of education. I think knowledge comes from experiences, and it can be knowledge of different things. I think when I think about knowledge, I think more about it in terms of those experiences, because from our experiences we learn a lot, and then we pass it on and pass it on and pass it on. And I think so much that's happening in the world, so much that happens in the world is through knowledge of the lived experiences that we pass on.
Amazing. Are there any particular people in your space that have passed their knowledge on to you, and what was that?
I think my dad, he passes on quite a lot of knowledge to me, and I think it's very subtle. Like, it isn't that he sits me down and he tells me a lot of things, but it's just in random conversations, just sentences that come up, and I'm like, that is profound. I think one thing that he always tells us, all four of us, me and my siblings, is that the day you stop learning is the day you die, and the day you think you're perfect is the day you die as well. So you're never perfect, and you're constantly learning, the other thing that he once told me was that, because this was just a little bit of context, this was back in Pakistan when there was an explosion or attack for the members of our community, and then all the people of our community gathered together and they started to protest. And I was really young back at the time, but my dad wasn't back in Pakistan, and he called us and he asked if we were going to the protest. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not interested. And then he told me this one thing that sits with me till today, is that if you aren't there for other people in their needs when they need you, then when you need people, they won't be there for you either. And I think that really shifted my perspective, and I was like, my community right now needs me, and if I'm not there for them now, then I cannot expect them to be there for me when I need them. So I think that those things that my dad tells me every now and then is like, oh well, that's really something. And I think that just helps me then use it in my journey and in the way I navigate things and the way I see the world. So I think definitely my dad would be one person that has passed me a lot of knowledge.
Honestly, we want to honor your dad because that's some powerful whakatokis that he's already weaving into your proximity. What's his name? Show him off. Come on, shout out to him.
My dad is Liaka Deli Changesi. That's his name, and yeah, he's also in the sector. He works in a non-profit called Refugee Orientation Center, and he is working as a manager there. So yeah, that's my dad.
Sounds so cool. I want to meet him. I'm curious if you know, or if you, like, what is the whakapapa of that, do you think, for your dad? If you're not there for your community when they need you, then how can you expect them to be there for you? Do you know where that's come from for your dad?
I can't really pinpoint that particular where did that come from, but I think one thing that I definitely know for sure is that my dad has been the kind of person that has always been so passionate about his people and his community and service. Even until today, he'd be like, you have come here in New Zealand and you're aspiring to call this place a home. Because we are now living in this beautiful place, you need to understand the importance of this place and understand the value, and be of service to the people of this country, of this nation. And I think he's always been big on service and community and being active. So I think being there for people. So I think definitely that's where it comes from most of the time, because most of my life I've remembered my dad being a very active member in the community and doing things, and I think that has then somehow come into us as well, of like, contribute and be part. And I think he always constantly tells us, like, you need to be of service to this nation, because we live here, we call this place a home. And yeah,
I definitely see that in you too. And the different spaces and places that you occupy and volunteer in, and like things that you do in community, I for sure can definitely see that in action with you, for sure.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
All right, and so I guess that's a really good segue. Like, what communities do you actually add value to, and what communities add value to you? So, You've spoken beautifully about the service that your dad has provided for the community. So we just want to focus on you. Like, which communities are adding value to you, and vice versa?
I think one community that's definitely my own community, the community that I belong to, it's the Hazara community here in New Zealand. But apart from that, through my work that I'm doing at Shama, I work as a youth worker and work with ethnic young people. I think I've definitely then automatically been attracted to the ethnic community in general. So I feel like whenever we talk about ethnic, I'm like, oh yeah, that's my community, and I belong to that community. So any communities that are all the communities that come under that umbrella of ethnic, I definitely think that I try to at least add value to that community. Yeah, I'd say that.
Nice. No, that's good, because we all know that, like it takes a village or a community to raise a child. So we're very much in awe that that's something that you already uplifted, acknowledged, even from the generation above you. Yeah.
So you've already talked about knowledge being acquired from your dad and that intergenerational knowledge and the succession of that knowledge, through your family. We're curious if there's any other ways that you have gone about acquiring knowledge.
I think I'd definitely say it would be my lived experiences, because I feel like the amount of stuff I've learned from my experiences, I've not learned it from any university, any school, any institution, because I feel like when you experience something, it is you experience it so closely that it completely shifts your perspective. Because it's one thing going to a classroom and learning about something, or reading a book and learning about something, and it's completely different when you're experiencing that thing in person and you're seeing the shift happening around you, and you're seeing that, oh wow, this is what life is also about. Because when I think about myself, I used to be like a really spoiled, ungrateful child when I was a child. And my childhood was one where I think I was provided a lot of the things on a platter, and most of the things that I wanted were provided. It was very comfortable. And also the outside world, with whatever was happening with my community, the violence that was there, but internally within the house, it was really safe. I always had my family. All the things were provided to us, and I did not face as such. Whereas once we became refugees, then boom, all of the things that you once had, all of the things that you once took for granted are no longer there for you. And then you're like, oh, I thought life revolved around me, but I was so wrong, because it doesn't. And there is so much more to life than just what I thought my life looked like or was. And so I think I completely took a 360-degree change in my personality, because I completely changed once I went through those experiences, because it was so up close, and all the things that we learn about, you're experiencing it now, and you're like, wow. And I think definitely a lot of the knowledge comes from there, in terms of like how I see the world, how I perceive a lot of the things now has been very, very much influenced by the experiences that I went through. So definitely that.
And those experiences, like, in what different ways did that come through? Was it like a physical experience? Was it an emotional or mental experience? Like, how did that acquisition go from external to internal?
I think it was definitely all. It was physical. Much of it was physical, because while at one point you have the safety of a house, you have so much, you have everything that you want, whereas the next moment you have literally no idea where you're going. You literally are depending on strangers that you've never met in your entire life. And you don't know what's happening to you. Your future is as uncertain as anything. And you're running towards a future that's completely uncertain. You don't even know what's going to happen to you after that point. And definitely physical. A lot of the things that I lost. I haven't been to my country. I haven't been to my home. We literally had to pack a bag with only... I remember my dad telling us that each of you have the capacity of only packing 2 clothes and 2 shoes, 2 pair of shoes. So that was all we packed. And literally everything else was left behind. So that a lot of it was physical, but then I think in terms of how it was emotional or mental, it was fighting that feeling of like what I was and what I am now. So I think it was definitely a mixture of so many different things. It was all in one, and that is why it was so profound.
Yeah, I think that, I just have no idea what that would even be like. Yeah. And I think kind of going back to what you said at the start, that lived experience is the only way that you can kind of understand. And yeah, I think so many people can have opinions on something that they've never actually experienced for themselves. So, yeah.
No, yeah, I'll echo that. I feel like there's a lot of the times, because, and this is not in proximity to your conversation, but a lot of the times when people are in talking about how poor they are, or how this they are, and I'm like, I feel like they really don't understand the deeps of not knowing the future, not knowing what that looks like, and it's a bit disheartening as well, because it's like, the people that have the basic necessities and have all of these things don't look back, and they only look forward of being like, I'm still poor, I need to accumulate wealth here, and that's where 100%. For me, I don't like. That's why, like, for me, I'm like, I'm so rich. I'm so filthy rich compared to the life that I could have lived on the island. The life, if my mum didn't take me away from the island, I would have never been this rich. And this is something that, I'm not rich like somebody else. I'm very much rich compared to the lineage that I carry, and that's something that I'm so thankful for. And going back to your conversation, I'm like, how did you? Because you're like. And I'm assuming it would have been a lot of different healing work that's been doing all over the years. But how did you keep your sanity and your heart strong throughout all of those things? Because the thing that I really heard loudly was, I am love. So how did you keep your love through all of that season?
I think before I answer that question, just would like to add to the previous conversation, the piece of the conversation around a lot of the times when I meet people who have so much, yet they don't see it. They don't see how much they have. They don't see how rich they are. And rich not just in the sense of material and wealth, but just rich in general. I feel like I have understanding for those people, because I feel like I used to be one of those people at one point before I was hit with that experience. And I think most of the times it just takes people to be open and to learn and meet people with different lived experiences to understand that, because so many times it doesn't come from a place of intentionally wanting to do something, whereas most of the people, at least that I've met, it comes from a place of not being aware enough. And because they've lived in this bubble their entire life, where their friend circle, their group circle, their social circle have been people that have had the similar lived experiences as them. And so when you step out of that and you break that bubble and you go out and meet people who have had very, very different lived experiences, then you kind of come to realize that what you've had. And I think it is very human in nature to simply want more. And I think it's a very vicious cycle to be stuck in, because once you get stuck in that wanting more and wanting more and wanting more, it never breaks. Unless you stop and you're like, because there's always going to be people who are going to be more privileged than me. Always. But at the same time, I am so much more privileged than so many people at the same time. And if I don't understand that, then I'm just stuck in the cycle of complaining and wanting so much more from life than just simply being present and grateful for whatever that I have. Because it is honestly human nature to just want more. The greed never goes away. So unless we stop and sit down and say, I've got so much, and the more we compare ourselves to people who are more privileged or who have more than us, we're constantly going to be stuck there. Whereas if we stop and be grateful and look at people who don't have so much that we have, I think that's when you start to realize that we actually are so rich, so rich. So yeah, definitely wanted to add that point in.
Beautiful.
In terms of the question of like, how did I keep my sanity? I think at times it was so hard to keep the sanity. At times it was easier to let the hope go and be stuck in that cycle, and much harder to get up and fight each day and be like, it's gonna pass, this time is gonna pass. And it was 5 years. It wasn't a short period of time. It was 5 years of being stuck in that place of helplessness, of being deprived of some of your basic human rights. And that feeling of helplessness, I think one thing that I cannot take away is that feeling of helplessness. And I think that feeling is one of the feelings that I definitely feel like brought so many things to my attention, in terms of when you feel, no human being wants to feel helpless. No person wants to feel helpless, but when you feel helpless and when you're made to feel helpless, that's when it's like really, really disheartening. And I think during those 5 years, there were so many times when you felt helpless, when something horribly wrong was going with you. You were being treated horribly wrong, yet you couldn't speak, you couldn't say, because you were not considered human enough, and it was disheartening. And I think there were so many times when it was just so hard to keep that sanity. But I think one thing that definitely kept my sanity was the learning center in Indonesia that we kind of established. And because refugees in Indonesia cannot work or get education, and so my dad and a couple of his friends, they got together and they decided to establish their own learning center. It started with only 18 students in a 2-bedroom house, and now it's educating over 300 refugee children. And I remember I was 15 and I kind of volunteered myself to be a teacher, and I started teaching. And I think it was 4 years before we settled here, I was teaching other kids. And I think that's what kept the sanity alive, having something to look forward to every day, and knowing that, there was still hope, that you're still doing something. Friends, connection, people who were in the similar boat as myself. Our experiences were so similar. All of us were in the same boat. All of us were deprived. All of us were exactly feeling the same way, waiting, uncertainty. But that community of people, and knowing that there's something to look forward to every day, was definitely something that kept my sanity, at least.
And so can you also speak on how that sharpened your love, and how that those experiences turned you almost sharpened your love capacity for yourself and for the what you were seeing around you, and just can you speak on that?
Yeah, I think definitely when I was a volunteer teacher and I was voluntarily teaching, and I saw the difference that it made to the lives of those children, those kids. It was so huge, because I could see that if not for the learning center, so many of us would have lost our minds. So many of us it would have been so much more harder to be in that situation. Yet that place provided so much support and healing to so many people there, because you came there, you met people who are in the same boat as yourself, and you're forming this bond. People, like, all those kids became best friends. They would run around the school and they would be playing, and you were seeing the difference that you're making. And I think that ignited this fire in me that at the end of the day, I really want to do something that makes a difference in the lives of no matter how small a number. And I think that's the reason that I then decided to go for law as my degree, because I really want to be in the human rights area, and I don't know what I can do. I don't know how much of a difference I can make, but definitely even the smallest of difference can be big. And yeah, I think just simply observing and realizing that love can heal so much. When there's love, there's so many things that doesn't seem wrong when it is wrong.
It's definitely like a common theme that I've had the privilege of experiencing from you, is that love, connection is always there.
It's the answer. I think it's the answer. It's the answer to everything. I feel like if I was given one wish, one superpower, it would be to completely diminish hate in the world, because I think so much of the problem comes out of that one strong feeling that we have for another person. And I think the moment we stop seeing the humanity in the other person, that's when things start to go horribly wrong. Because we can always have difference of opinions. We can always be two different people from two different, completely different worlds, yet at the same time see each other's humanity and acknowledge that and respect that. But the moment you stop seeing that humanity in the other person, that's when it goes horribly wrong. And I think it's the answer, because we are still connecting, even though we might have come from like completely two separate worlds. It's because you see the humanity in me and I see the humanity in you, and that's enough for us to connect. And I think that should be enough for everyone in this world to connect.
Potent. 100%.
I'm curious, if we take that framework of seeing the humanity in others as a way of connection, if we were to input knowledge into that, how do you think that people could navigate different people's understandings of knowledge? Because obviously, like, I come from a different worldview around knowledge, and in my space, and I think it's common in Western spaces particularly, knowledge is attached to like academic, like in here, whereas I think from what I've experienced in Te Ao Māori, it's more so like holding knowledge of your whakapapa and tikanga and that kind of thing. So how do you think that in a space there can be equity in knowledge, and how people can navigate that as a collective?
I think, again, I feel like if we were to keep seeing humanity and other people at the center of everything, then you kind of come to this understanding that, yes, even though we all come from such different walks of life, and I think at this point there's so many different cultures that are residing in Hamilton, at least, and all of those cultures have their own understanding of what knowledge is. And I think if we were to bring, and I feel like what's really important to understand is that there's no right or wrong when it comes to knowledge. And there is no one, when it comes to culture and knowledge, there's not one right or wrong. I can't say that my culture is right or my cultural practices are right and yours are wrong, because that's my cultural practice. And that's what I think is right. But for you, it might seem completely bizarre, absurd, weird, but that is mine, and it doesn't have to be right or wrong, this or that. And I think that is where a lot of the problem is, that it's not this or that, right, wrong all the time. It's we can all coexist with our cultural beliefs in place, as long as there's that line of respect, as long as seeing the humanity in the other person, in the other culture, in the other group, as long as that's in the center of everything, I don't think anything else matters. Because then you stop seeing right and wrong, black and white, yes and no. You kind of see that we all are a human collective, and our actions and behaviors are influenced by our experiences, and we all bring in something. And there's something beautiful about my culture that can be celebrated. There's something beautiful about your culture that can be celebrated. And while there are things about each culture that could be said to be, according to the other group, but we can all pick good things about each culture and celebrate it for what it is.
Yeah.
I love the rephrase, because to me, like, I've been saying something similar, but and I guess for me, I've been leaning in towards the ignorance. So using ignorance as a mana enhancing tool rather than a diminishing tool, because it's like we are all ignorant to to each other, and we're all ignorant to even to every moment that we're in. We're all ignorant to it, and then some of us don't understand that as much, and then they colonize the silence with their opinions and with their perspectives and what they think is right or wrong. And in my head, I'm like, your perspectives are 100% valid. What you do with them, and if it diminishes somebody else's humanity, that's like that's I feel like that's where I've really bridged. You've really helped me bridge that, because I'm like, I've been really. Yeah, because like for me, I like the ignorance, and I like my own ignorance, and I like wayfinding my own ignorance, and I like giving other people. So now I'm learning how to give other people the chance to learn their own ignorance, and you know, fine tune how they get out and explore their own ignorance and explore other people's ignorance. And it's so potent that we actually, in our ignorance, we actually admit that we don't even understand fully our humanity, you know, like our humanity as an individual. And like for me, I can admit that proudly. I'm like, I don't understand my own humanity and how it works. And if I understand that at a and if the collective understand that, it would be not like, it's like you said, we wouldn't even have to think about right or wrong, because we would all be ignorant, or we would all be in that space. And another word for that would be finding the humanity in every space, where I'm like, the humanity is actually giving people the respect that everyone deserves, regardless of your opinion of them, you know what I mean? And I'm like,
Exactly.
I love that. I love that for Kōrero, because you've really stretched my capacity to think about wayfinding ignorance, because there's like, I guess different audiences will need to hear actually it's about the humanity, and then different audience will relate to ignorance and as a enhancing tool, but different audience would actually be like, nah, it's about the humanity. And that, to me, I'm so thankful that you're able to share that with us so effortlessly as well. Just gonna say, so effortlessly, just like, you know, just a Thursday afternoon thought, you know. And I'm like, just finished my exams, you know, it's about humanity, whatevs. So thank you. Like, I'm so in awe of the way that you can articulate that so effortlessly.
I'm curious if there's any like practical tools or skills that you utilize when trying to see the humanity in other people.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What does that actually look like in action for you?
Oh, I feel like it's something that goes on internally a lot of the times in my head. Is like, even I think it takes a conscious effort to in that moment when you are diminishing someone's humanity, in that moment it takes a lot of effort and courage to stop yourself and be like, well, let's stop there, because at the end of the day, the person that I'm talking to or looking at is a human being who has gone through certain, and their behavior is influenced by their lived experiences, and because you're not in their shoes. And I think it genuinely takes one person to actually step out of their shoes and step into their shoes to see their humanity. I think one practical tool that I can only think of is being open. Because I feel like the moment I start talking to someone, for example, who's a stranger, and I'm meeting them for the first time, I already have so much build up in my head for the person that I'm talking to. And it must be that I'm talking to this person with a clean slate. There's nothing there. And I'm just talking to them because they're a human being, and I'm talking to them so I can learn about their story and not have my own story of them in my head.
Delicious. So one more time. Say that. Repeat that one more time.
So I mean, so that I can listen to their story. Once I start to see their humanity, I can actually listen to the person's story with a very open mind, without making up their story in my mind. And I think it does take courage, but I think it starts somewhere. It has to start somewhere. And I think to start somewhere, the easiest way I can say is be open, be curious. Don't put people into boxes the moment you see them. Because I might be completely different than what you thought. the people that I've gotten really, really close to, we all had different perceptions of each other for ourselves until we got to know them, until we got to know their story, until we sat down with them and actually, pushed aside all that the world kind of fed into us and told us that if this person looks like this, then this person is like this. And clearing up my head and being like, okay, tell me your story. I see you for who you are and not for what I think you are. So I think I feel like, at least for myself, and it's not always the case. I'm a human being who is guilty of having stereotypes and my own assumptions of people in my head. But I think it's being aware. The moment that thought comes into my head that I'm judging someone, I kind of flick myself and I'm like, sorry, but you're just judging someone that you don't even know anything about. Are you judging someone based on just one interaction? And is that fair to that person? And most of the times it isn't. And it takes a conscious effort for me to stop myself and be like, but I just did that. And that was a stereotype.
Yeah. It shows, like, to me, it shows a lot that you've actually done a lot of inner work and a lot of inner conversations to arrive at those conclusions for yourself, because you've, like, to me, if you can articulate it this well, it means that you've already put it into practice and you've already trialed and failed at different trial eras where you've been like, oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's my assumption, but is that true on your side?
I think I definitely have done some inner work. Yeah, but I think I still am doing it. And I think I'm really glad that I got this summer period of no exams and no uni for 4 months, where I think that's when I'm actually taking the time to dig deeper and find my own, biases and my own assumptions about people. And I think one reason that I feel like I had to do the inner work in some way, because most of the times I was on the other end of being judged, of people having stereotypes about me, even before meeting me. And I think that really affected me, where I was like, these people don't even know me. These people didn't even have a conversation with me, yet they think something about me that is completely untrue. And I want someone to see me for the person that I am. And every time that a person saw me, not for what I looked like from the outset, how I dressed like, or what kind of accent did I have, but rather they saw me for this human being that I was, and they acknowledged that. It felt good. And then I think then I had to go into that space of like, am I doing this to other people? Am I making other people feel like that? How I was made, And you never want, I think that's this very famous quote that you hear is like, treat people how you want to be treated. And I didn't want to be treated that way. So why would I do that to someone else?
Hard. 100%.
So good. And I think that, like, that quote that you just said is taught to our young people too. Like, I always got told that when I was in primary school even. So it's just like such a basic thing, but for some people I think it can be really hard to actually put that into practice. Of like, treat people how you want to be treated. And it seems so simple, but I think, I know that I've also had trouble doing that in the past too, so...
And I feel like it has also to do with a lot of the internal dialogue, because I'm coming to find out that I didn't realize that it was like, because for me, I'm like, my internal dialogue is actually quite happy, a lot of like, and not happy in a superficial way, but I'm like, I don't really have negative self-talk of being like, oh, you look fat, or you're sounding too feminine, or this. Like, I feel like I've haven't had that in a long time, and I'm so privileged for that. And I know that it's a privilege in this day and age. And I'm shocked as well that people have those internal dialogues that don't even check themselves, And I'm like, oh. Like, because I'm like, for me, I'm like, if you can do that naturally, I'm only wondering what's happening up here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, because that's only the tip of the iceberg. Because come on, people are like, well, for me anyways, let me not claim it for people. For me, I don't say like a lot of the stuff that I'm thinking, like, because I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be connection is best, and I'm trying to connect in a way that is purposeful. And to me, I'm not trying to release all of the perceptions that I have. And at the same time, I'm like, I'm always coming back to the internal dialogue, because every time I see this type of behavior, I'm like, oh, I feel sorry for what's happening in your insides if you're able to say this out loud freely. And at the same time, I acknowledge as well that not everyone has had the privilege and the tools and the exposure to what best practice looks like within different situations and scenarios. And that's one of the things that Kelsey actually quite enlightened me to, is just, not everyone has the tools and the kits here to wayfind this,
100%.
their own mirrors. What were you going to say, Kelsey? Sorry?
So we've talked a lot about like the acquisition of knowledge from, through your experience and everything that's kind of brought you to this point right now. And we're curious, like, what knowledge are you going to hold on to for this next season of your life?
I think it's the thing that I hold on right now, and that I would love to hold on to for the longest of time, is that I think it's definitely got to do with that seeing the humanity, and not just in other people, but also in myself. Because I think so many times, and I think this is how our brains have been wired, and we've been programmed this way, that you should be kind to other people. When it comes to us, it's surprising how we talk to ourselves. I think, and we've never been taught to be kind to ourselves. I've never heard someone tell me that, be kind to yourself. I've heard it from other people tell me to be kind to other people, and which is great, which is amazing. We should be kind to other people. But I feel like it's impossible to be kind to other people unless you're kind to yourself. And it's so important to be kind to ourselves, because it's surprising how I read this book on self-compassion where there's one line that stood out so much. Very simple line, yet it was like, the next time you are beating yourself up, just notice the self-talk. Just notice what you're telling yourself. And ask yourself, would I tell this to a friend? And if not, stop right there. And I was like, that's true. Like, if a friend came to me with the exact same problem that I'm facing right now, I would tell her so many things, that it's okay, and you're a human being, and we all make mistakes, and we all mess up. But I've done the same thing, and the conversation is completely different. So, and I think that stood out for me and it sat with me, because I was like, there's so many times that I talk to myself that I would never tell anyone else. Because I think one thing that, one knowledge that I'm going to hold on to for the longest time is that words are powerful, are so powerful. It can break someone, it can make someone, and it can do so much damage without us even knowing it. And because I have generally been a really sensitive child, and I still remember things that was told to me without people even giving it a second thought. I have noticed my friends becoming insecure about their particular feature when it was pointed out to them by someone, and they thought it was just fine. And that one sentence made that person insecure for the rest of their lives about their particular feature. If I tell someone that your nose is too big, just as a comment, for me it was just a comment. For that person, it becomes their biggest insecurity. And we remember words, and it sits with us. And then we start to build this narrative from that sentence about ourselves. And I think that just kind of brings me back to this point that words are really powerful, and what I tell myself during that self-talk that I'm doing is going to have a really, really huge impact. So for starters, seeing the humanity in myself, seeing that at the end of the day, no matter what I do, no matter the kind of person that I am a human being, and human beings are meant to make mistakes, and we are meant to fall and rise again and fall and rise again and fall and rise again. And that is okay. And then the same narrative goes on for other people as well. That no matter how frustrated or angry or hurt I feel from this particular person, they're a human being. And I feel, for example, sorry for them that they had to go through that tough time that made them act this way or behave this way. And it wasn't their fault. And my job is to see that humanity in them, that at the end of the day, they're a human being who makes mistake, and hopefully who will learn from that particular mistake. So I think that's something that I'm gonna hopefully carry on, that piece of knowledge.
Cool. And you provided a new reference point for us to keep on reminding you as well. So that takes a village. So we're gonna keep on coming back to that. So we're coming up to our last question, which is, what stories have you archived, like inventoried, or placed at the back of your high voltage security no access vault? Also, like, so another way of saying this is, what's a taboo conversation for you, or what are topics that are in your FAQ?
Oh, that's a good question.
No biggie, take your time.
I think I wouldn't say taboo, but conversations that I have stored in the back of my mind, and I think it's high time those questions or conversations need to be addressed, is my own past traumas. And I think that for quite a while in my life, I have been on fight and flight mode of like on the go constantly. Even I think first year in New Zealand, it was, you have to resettle. You have to find this and find that and get used to the roads and learn how to drive and learn the system and go to uni, start job. And that was constantly running, that it just kept on being pushed, and it was never addressed. And one thing that I'm pretty sure is that if you don't address your traumas, it's either going to come out on wrong people, you're going to project it on wrong people, and if you don't break the cycle, it's only going to pass on. And the last thing I want to do is pass it on. So I think one thing that's definitely, and that I definitely need to address those conversations and have those conversations with myself, sit down and talk to myself about those things, about how they've impacted me and how they've impacted my behavior and my choices and the kind of person that I've become. Because if I don't address it, then it's only gonna, I think, start eating until there'll be probably nothing left. And I don't want to give up on I think on my heart, which has a lot of love for a lot of people, for this world. So I think that conversation definitely needs to be started with myself at least. It needs to start somewhere, and it's scary because it's scary to go there, and it's confronting to sit down to yourself and be like, this is why I'm this way.
That's such a powerful share. Thank you. Thank you for trusting us to share that, because we definitely know that that's a conversation that is gonna take a lot of investment, and it's a powerful fuck you topic to address.
Is there anything that you do to create safety for yourself when you're diving into that space?
I think it's probably got to do with reminding myself that it's gonna be hard, and kind of reminding myself of my humanity again. that it's a journey, and I think a lot of us, most of us, we want things to be done quickly. We just want answers, and we want results. We're obsessed with the outcome all the time, and we want outcomes right away. I'm gonna start my inner work, and tomorrow I want to be the best version of myself. Impossible. The day I think the day I think I will be like, I have understood myself completely. I've done all the inner work. I don't think that day is ever gonna come. I don't think that till the day I live on this planet, till the last breath that I take, it's a journey. And it's always reminding myself that, let's not be too obsessed. Because I think one mistake that I made was, back when I was in Indonesia, I was like, once I get to New Zealand, all my problems are gonna go away. Like, life will be perfect. I came here and it was like, big slap on the face. You were wrong. And I think that's when I was like, oh, but, why do we think that once this thing happens, then we're going to be happy? Once this thing happens, why do we have to attach ourselves to happiness too much? Because it's going to come and go. And bad times are going to come and go. And it's part of life, and it's a journey. And we just have to find how we can navigate through that journey. And how can we be present and live in the moment when it's a good time, when it's high, when we're having the best time of our lives, and we have so much love to give out, and be patient with ourselves when it's the lowest, and when things don't seem right and you can't find anything to be grateful for, and it's fine, and it's gonna keep on happening. And I don't think that there's an end to it. I cannot be like, from point A to point B. There's no point A to point B. It's a constant journey, and we're all on it, all in our own ways. And there's no end point to it, and we shouldn't be too obsessed with the end point. We should be obsessed with the process, just enjoying the process, trusting the process. Whatever comes. Whatever goes. What's meant for me will stay and be there. What's not won't be there, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
That what you said around, you don't think that you'll ever be done with the inner work. It reminds me of what you said about your father, or what your father says of, when you stop learning, you die. I think it's the same. I perceive, and what I've heard is that it's a very similar whakaaro. Yeah.
Exactly. I think it definitely is.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day that I get to meet your dad. It's gonna be good.
Yeah,
thank you.
Like, this is my dad.
Yeah, I've heard so much about you, so hello.
I love you.
Yeah, hi. How are you? I know so much. Thank you so much, Madiha.
I have something that I wrote, which I'd like to share because it's so similar to what we were talking about right now.
Please.
Yes, and if it's okay, I can share it.
Yes, please.
Always.
Please. So just a little context. I'm really into creative writing, and I love it. And I don't do it for a particular reason. I just do it because it feels good. And I wrote this because it just randomly came into my head, and it's called Why Not? And it goes like this. How strange it is that the more we escape pain, the faster it runs behind us. I've come a long way on this journey of pain to be where I am today. I've given up so much of me, so many pieces of my soul. I've given up my concrete home, my safe haven, the roof above my head, along with the homes I built in other people's hearts. I lost the warmth of my loved ones, the kind of laughter I only had with his childhood besties, the familiar senses, the familiar smell of the air, the food, the streets, the familiar sight of the people who radiated belonging, the familiar sound of the rich language. It was a long journey of excruciating pain and agony. And in that journey, there were so many times when I thought, it's the end of me. Only that it wasn't. So many times when giving up seemed easier than holding on to hope, than showing up as my authentic, vulnerable self, than fighting the battle of life. But no matter how hard that seemed, it was still possible. That's when I learned about the fascinating resilience of us humans. We make the impossible possible. We fight till the very last lungful of air. And here I am. Despite that agonizing journey of pain, loss, and struggles, here I am, standing tall in my truth, showing up every day as my true, vulnerable self, who lost and hurt, but who also fought and won. Here I am, ready to live and explore and hurt and heal and grow and laugh and hope and dream and hurt a little more and learn from it and fall again, fall hard and rise again and keep falling and keep rising. Because isn't it what life is all about? Hurting and learning, falling and rising. Because pain is inevitable, and running from it will not make it disappear. It will always appear in some way, shape, or form. Why not surrender and watch the magic unfold as you live every moment as it comes? Why not take pain as an opportunity to learn and grow? Why not? Kia ora.
Oh, foi actually nam te whakanisi. Thank you so much for that gift. That's it so home. I totally resonate with that. Thank you so much. I really, it was the gift that I didn't know I needed today, and I'm so happy that you're willing to gift some, because I know that creative writing is a vulnerable process, and sometimes it reveals a little bit of you in a way that you can gift back to people. And to me, I'm really thankful for your gift to us and your gift to this moment, and your ability to just be creative and wayfinding. And I feel like that's something that Kelsey and myself have been called to, and being invited to figure out our creative devices. And Kelsey has been figuring out different ways that sound can be recorded, and fine tuning something else. And same with me, I'm doing different ways to articulate how I feel and think and process. So I'm really thankful for that. Thank you so much, Madiha.
I just thought that particular piece that came to my head while I was talking, and I was like, it sits so well with this conversation right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And I thought I would share.
Thank you for sharing. Feel so blessed to be gifted that too. Yeah, and I'm sure it's gonna resonate with a lot of people that are listening as well, for sure. So good. Thank you so much, Madiha, for coming through and sharing your story and being vulnerable with us. We see you, and thank you. Thank you isn't enough, but they're the only words that I've got.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
We also thank the people in your village that help you become such a powerhouse. So
for sure.
Especially your family who are already in the room. Show us the photo again, please. Come on, show them off. Yes.
Cute.
Oh, so cute. And then if people want to connect with you, how are they best? So if they resonate with your story and they want to connect with you, how are they best to connect with you, Madiha?
I can, they can connect with me through Instagram, because I think that's where I'm most active. They can also connect with me through Facebook if that's what they like.
And
I love your stories and your shares, so keep doing that as well. So don't stop doing that.
Amazing.
It was lovely. It was a lovely conversation, and time flew by. So thank you guys for creating this space where I was able to come and authentically share, because that didn't come out of like, oh, I'm gonna share this particular piece. It just came so naturally because I thought it resonated, and yeah. So thank you for creating that space. You guys are amazing.
Spotted, you got it. Spotted, you got it. Okay.
Amazing.
Now, all right. So we're gonna end with our jingle. So please do join in. The fuck you.
Fuck you.
The fuck you.
Hey, fuck you. The fuck you.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
See you later, whānau.
Ka kite.